Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. I'm Joe Thorderson, here at my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And today's going to be sort of a mixed bag, but I think there's a theme that's going to emerge, and it's all about live performances. We all experienced something live recently, and it's sort of juxtaposed by something that we're going to discuss here in just a second, and that's the fact that the theaters had the lowest attendance in 30 years for a Memorial Day weekend. I feel like that's sort of noteworthy. That's kind of a big deal, and there were movies that weren't terrible. I mean, you saw The Fall Guy, a good solid movie. I feel like if a movie like that came out 20 years ago, it'd probably be a big hit, right?
I mean 20 years ago, people had plenty of disposable income.
Is that what's going on? I guess it occurred. Well, here's what occurred to me though, you guys. When it said 30 years, I'm like, okay, I'm going back 30 years. That's 1984. Right. Well, there were some pretty darn good movies back then. I happen to know Amadeus came out, but maybe that wasn't Memorial Day. But I know it would have been the year after Return of the Jedi came out. Right now, why would that be?
Okay,
I guess I'm thinking of why would 30 years ago be so low? Seems like a prime time for movies.
Here's something that I'm just going to throw this out there.
Okay.
This couldn't be completely wrong. I don't care. I'm going to throw this theory out there. We were not only in an election year in 1984, but we were also celebrating back when the Olympics were all in 1 year.
Were they all in 1 year? Oh, that's right.
That was before they
split
split it up, where you get one every 2 years. You know, on your basically on your leap year, you got the winter and summer games, and you had all the qualifiers. Memorial Day, also in '84, if I remember correctly, and I was young. I was real young, but I think I went through a hurricane that year.
Really?
Because I was living in Texas at the time. I think we had a lot of bad weather that year too, didn't we, Alan?
Interesting.
Yeah. I was also sitting there looking at this going, 1984, Indiana Jones.
But when did it come out?
Against All Odds, The Killing Fields. There was a raft of, noteworthy movies. But in 1984, also going to the movie, as we were discussing last week, didn't cost me and Alyssa $50 each.
Yep.
Were these Memorial Day though? The reason what I was going at was I feel like Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi, what a huge movie, and so next year it's bound to be a letdown, I guess, and maybe even I don't know. I didn't know if there were ramifications for that. So
I mean, there's a possibility with everything. I mean, I didn't have an adult mindset back in 1984, so I can't truly gauge what the economy was like.
Memorial Day weekend was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Okay.
Which
was a darker movie, and word of mouth pushed a lot of people from going to see it with their kids after seeing, even with a Nazi melting scene at the end of Raiders, people thought of Indiana Jones as a family adventure film.
Right.
And after the first couple of scenes, they say that Temple of Doom didn't do as good at the box office anyway because of its darker tone.
It freaked me out when he ripped the heart out of that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was, The Natural.
Great movie.
Baseball movie.
Yeah.
I know Joe's going to be excited about that.
Yeah.
Of Romancing the Stone.
Classic.
Yeah.
A massive hit.
That's like a rom-com adventure.
But again, a sequel, because it's a sequel to Jewel of the Nile.
Romancing the Stone was first.
Okay.
This was the original. And then rounding out, just to give you the big four movies of Memorial Day weekend in 1984, Breakin'.
That's the one I would have gone to see. I love Breakin' and Breakin' 2. I really do. It's like,
is that breakdancing?
Yes, and I could totally sit down.
It was a huge hit, man. Everybody saw it.
Look, Turbo was my hero. Spoiler alert, when he gets his leg broken in the second movie, I was like, no. But yeah, I was like, I love those movies.
That's interesting. I mean, seems like Raiders of the Lost Ark would have. I mean, or I should say, Indiana Jones would have carried enough. I'm just surprised that it was so low.
You got to think it's, again, like, there's so much going on in '84. Just because people didn't get out there to see it, on Memorial Day weekend doesn't mean people didn't get out there to see it. It's just, it was a little more of it was a little muted.
Maybe too. I mean, you said something about the weather, and the truth is, if a movie comes out, you'd have 3 months to see it before it leaves the theaters, right? So
I mean, and that's only if it's lukewarm reception. I mean, Raiders could have been in, I'm not Raiders, but Temple of Doom could have been in theaters for, upwards of 6-7 months.
That's a good point.
I mean, think about not even that long back towards between now and when Titanic was released. Titanic was in theaters well past its video release.
I think 6 months. Yeah. So that's another factor.
And keep in mind, today, my big fat Greek wedding would never happen.
True.
Because my big fat Greek wedding came out to crickets. A few people went to see it week one.
I love that movie.
And they went and got their friends, and they all brought 2 friends the next week, and it became almost a pyramid scheme that movie 3-4 months later was finally filling theaters. But that was not a, everybody's got to go see it movie. Right. That was when Brandon called me and went, dude, you got to go see this. Yeah. This movie was so much better than I thought.
But when I did that, it was Willy's Wonderland.
It was, and I have to admit, it was everything you promised.
Yes.
So this time around, we had Bad Boys Ride or Die, and I'm going to say the geriatric edition, because how long has Bad Boys been out? Garfield the movie. Garfield hasn't been relevant in 25 years.
And a lot of people are still like, you're oversaturating us with Chris Pratt. Because he's the voice of Garfield.
That?
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, we had Ryan Reynolds' If,
which
I'm sorry, it's the Pikachu movie again.
It just doesn't
I'm
good.
looking at the target audience.
And I love Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, you're not going to see this?
No,
not in theaters.
Not in theaters for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's what did you say last week about the investment?
Yeah, it's got to be like good. I got to know I'm going to like it if I'm going to spend that much money to see it.
And despite all the really positive reviews, Furiosa was kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, and I heard it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, I've heard it's really good, but people are like, meh, it's a Mad Max movie.
Well, but it's a franchise whose time has
passed.
It's been there, and I mean, we'll all watch it when it comes on TV.
Yeah,
but again, I'm gonna look directly at Alyssa and go, "Are you gonna go invest $40 in Furiosa?"
I can't say yay or nay on this because I haven't actually seen Mad Max.
I still think it's about release date. Okay, we'll wrap up our thoughts about that, but then we're going to talk about all the live events we enjoyed this week.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. Mr. Spock hates these guys. The Geek Patrol is back.
Okay, is it jealousy because we wear our emotions? I don't know. Jealousy, disdain, hate's an ugly word, but whatever.
I don't know.
Well, there's 30 seconds we'll never get back.
So. Okay, let's just move on. And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we were noting, we're not haters, we're just reporting the news. This year had the lowest attendance at the box office for a Memorial Day weekend, even though there were some pretty decent, good, well-made movies out there. Since 1984, and what that got us thinking about was, well, let's pull us up. Let's look back at the state of movies in 1984, and it's interesting because there were some pretty good ones, really, that eventually did make a lot of money. But I think the theme we're noticing here is that if you wanted to see a movie either on video, I don't even know if we had Blockbuster in 1984, but you had to see it in the theaters. However, they were probably in the theater. If you wanted to see Indiana Jones, it's going to be in the theater for 4 or 5 months at least.
Yeah.
So so maybe they didn't see it on Memorial Day weekend, but they saw it different. And I feel like today I don't get this whole rush to get onto streaming in whatever. Some of them, it's less than a month that they go from theaters to streaming.
So here's your popular theory.
Okay.
They will pay a licensing fee to put your movie onto streaming that may very well take care of the issue you have in the fact that you have a failing box office.
Okay.
That's become such a prominent part of the whole situation. And people are tired of, going to the movie theater, paying an arm and a leg to have a experience.
Very good. You caught yourself. So, yeah.
I was like, I'll say, I think when the pandemic happened and everyone started working from home, I work from home now. If I don't have to leave my house during the week, I'm just not going to.
Uh-oh.
I clocked out for the day, closed my laptop, and I'm going straight to my PC to watch something or my couch to watch something else.
Well,
she's lying. She's going to play Fortnite.
Alyssa, you're the target demographic on a lot of these movies, and the thing is, it's interesting you said that because when COVID happened, I feel like did some people realize, well, I still have a life even though I'm not going to the movies, and maybe you get out of the habit of going or something.
Yeah, I think also that.
Yeah. If you're gonna venture out into the world, you want something that you can interact with.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna sit and watch, I can do that from home, and I don't have to go see the newest thing. I don't care if you spoil the next Marvel film for me, because they all end the same anyway. They all end with a friggin' commercial for the next one. And that's one of the things I love about what's going on with Deadpool and Wolverine is they say that there's no see the next adventures of Wolverine and Deadpool at the end of it. They've already said there's not to worry about sitting through the credits.
Oh, nice. Really? So there's no
there's a mid stinger. But then you don't have to wait, 8 minutes going, what are they going to show me? And then you get to it, it's like, oh, I already knew this movie was coming out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if that era is over. So
I'm hoping so.
But
I'm still stuck on watching a James Bond movie, watching James Bond take enough explosives to the teeth to completely level an island, and at the end of the credits,
James Bond will return in.
It didn't say in; it just said James Bond will be back, and I went,
how?
In Ghost? He's gonna, are we gonna have a special?
It's the new Conjuring crossover. It's
Ed
and Lorraine are gonna.
He's gonna haunt him forever.
Even Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger bowed out eventually.
It just
until their next movie eventually. But
well, now of course my criticism of the movie theater dates back decades.
Yeah,
because. Technology replaced the movie theater for me in 1989. As soon as a television got large enough to actually enjoy a movie on it, I was done because I can sit at home, take the shoes off, drink whatever beverage I want to drink, have whatever snack I want to have, and I don't have somebody's
pause the movie when you got to go to the bathroom.
There's a pause. There was a pause button.
I really wish we could find a way to pause live events last night because during one of the funniest sets, I had to go to the bathroom. It was like, no.
That's the worst part.
All right, now, I will completely flip the script and say I saw Cats 8 times.
Yeah.
You know what? It ended the exact same way all 7 times.
But what's great about a live event is something's
different every single time.
Yeah.
You catch something different. It's a different stage crew. It's a different this. It's a different that. Alan, why would you see the same show 7 times? Because I saw them in different stages of being on the road.
Yeah.
Right.
And man, show number 1 was the bomb. The best one ever was show number 4 when I sabotaged all my friends and my godchild.
Oh.
Because I took a cherubic, beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy and sat him on the end of the row.
Where the cats were going
where the kitty cats could find him. And he was like a mouse loose in a theater.
This sounds weird.
The lights go out, the cats run all over the theater, and they find key people to appear at when the lights come on.
And nothing stands out in the dark of a theater than the slightest reflection off of blonde hair.
Oh, yeah. And the cute little boy, and he had like 5 cats on him.
Everything you're saying sounds really I don't know. Everything about it in the wrong context sounds like you could go to jail for
I really have a thought, but I better not say it.
Show for years. He had the experience of a lifetime that he just will never forget.
Well, trauma will create experiences of a lifetime.
Trauma or wonder.
You'll never forget.
Absolute wonder.
It's kind of being the same situation as being at Disneyland and watching a little kid with his Jedi robes and everything being, harassed by Kylo Ren and 2 First Order stormtroopers trying to find the Jedi outpost.
Yeah.
Okay.
That little kid's going to be like, I fought the Empire for the rest of his life.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
And won.
Won.
Okay. I don't know what Alan's nephew got out of this whole thing other than
a love for the theater.
Horrifying memories. Did he?
Not
yes.
Is he still going to the theater?
Live theater, baby.
Not everybody gets traumatized when someone speaks to them, Joe. This isn't downtown.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting...
Or a Cubs game.
It's an interesting dynamic because all of us enjoyed a variety of live events this week, and it's really interesting when you juxtapose it against the theater, and we're going to do that when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
You don't got movie sign till I say you got movie sign, capiche?
Who was that? I don't recognize that robot. Okay. Weird. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I am really thrown off by that. I'm Joe Thorderson, here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and the confusing Max over there behind the glass. Or am I just missing something? I don't know.
You're just missing something.
Okay, I like to think I know all about Mystery Science Theater, but I guess I didn't. So, hey, if you're just tuning in, we were talking about the fact that we've had a very low box office attendance at the theaters. However, live events are really thriving, and it's interesting, Allie. Off the air, we were talking to you about the fact that, I mean, you're a little soured on just dropping a lot of you'll still go to the theater.
Yeah, if it's something I know for sure that I saw Dune. For Dune 2, I saw that in IMAX because I knew for sure that I was going to love that movie and it was going to look beautiful. Even if, on the slim chance that the story wasn't as good as I thought it would be.
Right.
Visually, I needed to see that on that screen in that way.
Okay.
And I knew I would not regret spending the money to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a money concern, but it's also so you're still open to theaters and stuff, so that's good. But you and Brandon, we all experienced a live event this week, and we wanted to compare the difference between live events versus something in a theater. So, what did you guys do?
We went to see the Nate Bargatze Be Funny tour. Well, it was here at the FedEx Forum on Friday night, and I had a blast. How about you, Allie?
I had a lot of fun. It was very funny. I haven't gone to a lot of comedy shows like that before, so it was an interesting live event for me. Yeah, but they were all very funny. It was quite entertaining.
Back in the early 2000s, we had comedy clubs here that would send out tickets if you had attended enough times. I started getting free tickets to comedy shows for every other week for the longest time, and it's such a fun experience because you don't know what necessarily who's going to be up there. This was back in the day during Insomniac on Comedy Central, which I know I'm probably one of the only people talking right now that remembers the show. And we were downtown. We were on the square. We went to a comedy show. And Dave Attell showed up to tape an episode of Insomniac.
Oh, that's cool.
You never knew, like I said, you never knew what was going to happen on stage. You got these tickets, you showed up. And it's just comedy in itself is fun, again, because you never know what's going to hit with the audience, how the audience will respond once they've been a little altered, whatever their drug of choice is.
They were over on Beale Street.
Right, yeah.
Let's just say there's a reason there was a comedy review called 2 Drink Minimum.
Right.
Oh,
yes.
There you go.
and so I've always had a love for comedy shows.
Yeah.
So when our friend Christian was like, "Hey, I got tickets for the show," it's like, "Yep, sign me up. I'm there."
I'm curious though. I haven't been in years. I remember back in the 1980s that we saw Eddie Murphy at a universe. It was probably 12,000 people in the stadium, and I remember he was very crude, but he was funny.
Yeah.
But it's one guy on a stage with the microphone. I don't even know if they had the projectors back then. And what does it look like these days in a stadium setting? So
what we had, the Be Funny tour is done what they call in the round, even though their stage was square, and that's where they're in the center of the arena, and they will walk around and they will keep looking at the stage.
Yeah,
the lights are down. There's only spotlights on the comedian. They don't use a whole lot of video equipment except to broadcast exactly what the comedian is doing, so that people in the higher seats can see, which is good because we were in the luxury box.
Right.
Because, we don't go around people.
Because you got to see facial expressions in comedy.
And it's just, it was very much low-key, the same old school style that you would get pretty much anywhere, especially if you went and saw them at a university. Universities, especially back in the 70s and 80s, were really well known for doing things in the round. And I only know that because of videos that I've seen since. Going to comedy shows, whether I was at Bonkers down at the casinos or anything up here, they were always, straight stage performances. The audience was towards the back. The stage was up front. They couldn't see us. We could see them. And they did the same thing with the lighting, except for when Julian, I can't remember his last name, but he was the host for the night. When he would do it, they'd raise the lights up a little bit because he was calling out all the people who were being late to the show because they knew they didn't have to worry about being there until the headliner. So they missed out on 4.
Oh, he was like the warm-up act.
Well,
he would just come in between.
He was the host, but we had 3 other acts leading up to that. So I mean, we had 2.5 hours worth of comedy.
Yeah,
because it was
felt really fast,
almost 10
too.
when we got out of there, and it started about 7:15.
Yeah.
So how much?
How much what?
How much was it?
How much did I spend? I didn't spend anything.
Well, how much would you have spent?
The tickets to get in, I think the high price low front seats were only like $60.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then of course you've got your concessions, but
Yeah. And like my thing is like I am willing to spend a little more money if I'm at a live event. Like if I'm seeing people and like interacting or like getting some drinks, like something like that, or dancing, like that is worth a little bit more of my money than like sitting somewhere for 2 hours when
the
I could've
communal experience.
sat for free in my house for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, because we talk about the communal experience of being in a movie theater, but it's not to the degree that it is there. I mean, and in fact, the communal part of it sometimes is more
the more
irritating.
annoying part. Yeah.
And I mean, you get that same thing. Like if you go to see, like, me and my wife and our friends went to Opera Memphis for La Callisto, and even though you're quiet and you're watching the show, there's still more of a communal experience because of the fact that you get your intermission, you get to chit chat with other people who are enjoying it at the same time. Usually all you get when you come out of a movie theater is that you try your best not to say anything important because you have to walk right next to the line that's coming through, and people get so upset if you spoil something.
Oh,
for
you
them.
can't even.
Yeah.
You don't want to do the Homer Simpson thing.
Right.
So, but okay. So this is really interesting about because Alyssa, we've watched Alyssa grow up, and we've watched the way theaters and movies have changed. We've watched the whole evolution of things, and it's interesting to see what your tastes are. And I don't know. So, but stand-up comedy, I can't think of a harder job. I mean, you are putting everything. You talk about being exposed.
Yeah.
And if you're bombing, are there any jokes that you think bombed?
There was an entire set, the second set, and I feel bad for the guy because I'm sure he gets laughs everywhere else. It did not really hit with the Memphis audience.
It might be the size of an audience too. Could that play a role? I mean, it's one thing if you're in a room with 20 people versus.
No, because I mean he's on tour with Nate, so he's there the whole time. So, but they weren't Memphis jokes.
All right. Well, there's more to talk about, and we'll do it when we come back here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back,
and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage.
I've been saying.
Yeah. It's an oxymoron, but it's oddly appropriate. And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Alan Gilbreth and Alyssa Diggs and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we're basically doing a side-by-side comparing the theater experience to live events. We all experienced some live events this week. You all went to a comedy performance, although this is an arena. We should say you saw it at the FedEx Forum, I believe. Yeah. They seat 15,000 people. Talk about high stress. Being a stand-up comedian, you're literally the only person in the center of this arena, and you got to make 15,000 people laugh. Wow. Oh, yeah. No pressure.
Not at all.
No.
Well, we're talking about live events, and we're also really focused on the value that is perceived.
Right.
Yeah. So if you went to a comedy event and it was a dull night, you wouldn't immediately kind of like, I'm never doing this again.
Right.
You'd just like, well, it was a bad night. If you go see a dead movie, you don't think theaters are dead. But for the value, so we're honestly, we're talking what, 40, 50, $60 here.
Yeah.
All right. This is where I'm going to throw in other events like this weekend was the Italian festival.
Right.
Cost a few bucks to get in. You get to wander around and watch people cook.
Yeah,
very communal.
You get to smell a lot and not taste anything.
Well, they had food trucks and people selling you some pretty tasty stuff. And then I'm going to flip it, Brandon. I'm going to look directly at the three of you and go, well, you guys put on a convention.
Yes, we do.
Well, how much? That's a 2-day, 3-day experience for the same money.
That's all about the communal experience for that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just kind of, and people wonder why people aren't getting so excited about the theater anymore. And I'm going, all right, but you guys are putting on a 2-3 day event for the same price of a 1 hour, 1.5 hour movie.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to throw this out there, especially Joe, Alyssa. This is definitely to you because Alan, I love you. You can put up with any kind of environment. Do you guys think that maybe
he cannot?
Yes, he can.
Ahead.
Yes, he can.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you think that the reason why we are having more enjoyment of the interactive communal experience because of COVID, because we went so long for and even afterwards, we were we were still in such a state where we wanted to stay away from people. Now your COVID shot comes at the same time as your flu shot. If you do those kind of things, it's not a mandatory thing. You can be around people, and it's like even if you get COVID, these days it's like, oh, I'm going to go to my doctor. He's going to give me a shot, or he's going to give me a couple pills. I'm going to be down for 2 days, or 2 or 3 days, like the flu. I'm back at work.
Now that's an interesting
Maybe that's
theory.
why we're basically as human beings, we are jonesing for that fix we get from the environmental community, gatherings.
It's pretty good.
And it's like we already could go see movies. Yeah. We may have had seats between us at the height of everything, or once we could get back in the theaters. But now it's like, all right, movies are there. We know where they're at when we are ready to go back to them. But now let's get out there and actually be a people again.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that, actually. So, you were making me think about something though, because you saw a stand-up comedy, really, a major show.
You went to a Cubs game.
I went and drove up to St. Louis to see the Cubs play. I also want to say over the last 3 months ago, I went and saw Hadestown, a Broadway show over in Alabama with my son. And I don't know about you guys, but this happens every time I go to a live event. It's fun to make friends with the people sitting around you.
Yes.
Because there's times where you get there and you got 20 minutes because it hasn't started and you're talking to the people around you. And then especially during intermission or in between innings. And that's a pretty cool thing. The thing I like about live events is everybody there could be from any walk of life, any social income, any whatever, and yet you're all there for a united purpose. And it's cool when you make friends with people that maybe ordinarily in the world you wouldn't even know or talk to.
Yeah.
So
when I went to New York to see Death Cab for Cutie, on the train home, we became friends with a big group of girls, and then even in the airport on our flight home, in the TSA line we saw people with band shirts on going to Texas. While we were headed to Tennessee, and we were like, we also flew to New York to see this band, and now we're flying to our other parts of the country.
Yeah, because we've said that in the past. This is the way the world should be. People of all different makeups should all be friends, and you do that at a live event.
Yeah,
and it's one of the reasons why we love the fandom community with conventions and stuff like that, is because for a moment, it doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter what kind of childhood you had growing up. Where you came from or anything like that. For a moment, you're all together to make fun of the guy who doesn't seem to know enough about Doctor Who while he's trying to run a Doctor Who panel.
Well, we've never seen anything
like that. But if you think about it, even the guy who was running the panel got in on the joke with the rest of the audience, and nobody walked out of there like, oh, well, I didn't like that. Everybody seems excited when they leave it because for a moment, none of the rest of it matters except for your love of whatever that fandom is, be it Cubs fans, be it people who love comedy, even being people who would want to see the next Marvel film. Just if you had a theater where people could interact in the midst of it before the movie, because everybody wants you to be quiet as soon as the things come up, maybe we'd have a better experience at the theaters.
And we experienced it even at the movie theaters. We just in the parking lot afterwards, or maybe beforehand or something. So there is something to be said for all of us, being in one place together, celebrating something like that. So, but it is just sort of interesting that I don't know, theaters are gonna have to get their act together, I guess, or I don't know. Maybe it's just gonna. go away. Alan's sort of just hoping for a quiet death or whatever, but
No, that's actually not true. I would like to see theaters transform.
Maybe that's it. Just evolve.
I remember Jaws and the Lion around a single theater. And the next thing you knew, we had metroplexes with tiny little seats and 8 billion people crammed in there. And I would really rather go back to the more chilled and groovy, we're really here to celebrate this event.
All right. Well, we may do that, but we're not going to do it today because it's time to get out of here. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Alan Gilbreth.
I'm Maximilian.
I'm Alyssa Diggs.
And I'm Brandon Olmstead. Poll in the audience. Would you go to a GTR live show?